So let's say you have a class that allows you to create instances of cars. Let's name this class car, create a simple constructor that will take the brand and the model of the car you want to create. We'll have a brand of the brand that was passed, and same thing for the model. A new instance will have the model that was passed to the constructor. Let's also add a toString method that will allow to simply return a template string, and this will simply make a summary of what was created, and we say the brand of Ford, for example, and followed by the model. Without a factory, what you usually do when you want a vehicle and that you have a class, you just create a new instance of the car and you pass the brand. Let's go for a Ford, and the model by Focus. So now you can see that you have a car, and if you call toString, you can see this car is a Ford Focus. But what is great when you use a factory is that in JavaScript you can simply create a function that would be used as a factory, and usually to indicate that this is a factory, you prefix the function with a word like create. So let's make this factory that is named create vehicle, and this factory will also take a brand or a model. And it would simply, as it is a factory, return an object. So let's return a new car. So now, if we create another vehicle, we just have to call this factory create vehicle and pass. And this time let's go for a French car, a Renault. And the model is Clio. So now the other vehicle is a Renault Clio. You might think, yeah, well, it's 3 more lines of code to do what I did in just 1 line of code. But what is great is that the factory hides the implementation detail, meaning that, for example, you could export this function and not export this class. So this class would be private and only the create vehicle function would be public. So if you exported this one from another file, you could import it and then use it. But also what you can do is, when you see this new explicitly, that means that there is a strong coupling between your code and the code here that instantiates a new car. Because, for example, let's say that you want to send a different type of car depending on the number of passengers. So let's create another class. The constructor would be the same, and let's add a default value. So by default we would have a GMC, and the model by default would be a Buffalo. So the same thing, the brand is retrieved, the constructor, same for the model, and we also have a toString method that we can use here. And we could say this bus is a whatever you want. So now you could decide to create different vehicles. So let's say we have a specific number of passengers. For the moment we will only use default values. So now you can test the number of passengers. So if it's less than 5 passengers, you would return a new instance of a car. And if it's more than 5, you would return a new instance of a bus. So now if you want to create a vehicle, you let the factory decide that for 2 passengers you would have hopefully a car, and it's a forward focus because we added these default values, but we will in a moment allow to also pass other options. And if you want to create another vehicle for, let's say, 20 passengers, then you would have a bus. So now, of course, it would be much better to allow people to pass more options, like the brand of the vehicle they want and the model, and an option that would have a number of passengers. And then you could just forward the options there and the option there. So now, instead of just passing a number, you could pass an option that would contain a number of passengers. Again, let's go for 2 passengers, a brand of Renault, a model of Clio. And of course, you would have to use this option here and retrieve from the option the brand and the model. Same thing here. Let's indicate that we have 20 passengers, and frankly, as I don't know the brand of a bus, yeah, let's default it to GMC. In JavaScript, it's easy to create a function that is used as a factory, and then you just pass it the options that you need to pass, and the factory takes care of sending you the appropriate object that you want to use. This object is an instance of either this class, or you could have many other classes that wouldn't be exposed, so they would be private, and only this factory would be public. So should you always use a factory? No, of course not, because sometimes this is the nice thing with JavaScript. When you need a specific object just once, you can just create it yourself, so there is no absolute rule. So you could have again a Ford. Let's go this time for a Mustang. You can even add extra properties like the price. I don't know how much it costs. Let's go for 30,000. So you see, if you just need one object, you don't need to add a factory. You just create the object using key value pairs. But it's when you need to use several objects, and that also you need to either make decisions on what type of object you would return, or even add tests. You could do it in the factory. Then you could simply throw an error. Ah yes, it happened here because we forgot the S. But you see, so if we decided to create this vehicle without mentioning a number of passengers, then you would see this error. So the most important thing is also to recognize factories in other people's code, so you know what's going on. And you could also hide gory details. For example, I recently used a factory while I was using Leaflet because I never remember how to create a new instance of a card. So you see, I created a factory that returns me a map, so I don't have to remember that I have to use the style layer and the attribution.